Tom has worked as a consultant, aiding SaaS customers with the implementation of analytic projects in industries such as banking, retail services, insurance, manufacturing, and website analysis. Furthermore, he shares his knowledge and passion for statistics with students at small liberal arts college, where he teaches an introductory course in statistics. In his role, Tom serves as a principal analytic training consultant in the SAS Global Academic Program, assisting higher education institutions in effective using of SAS. We are fortunate to have him today with us, and we are look forward to learn from him sentiment analysis. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lily, for that nice introduction. Yeah, I'm getting ready to hit my 23rd year at SAS. So over the years, I spent about 17 years in consulting and got to work with a lot of SAS customers who were implementing new projects. And some of those projects involved text analytics. And so I told Lily before this started that text analytics is not my first language. So I didn't learn it in school. I kind of had to pick it up on the job. But SAS has some great tools for doing text analytics. If you're not, if you're scared of text analytics because you don't understand the mathematics behind it, the great thing is you don't need to understand. The software does all the work for you. And in our notes, we explain, like singular value decomposition and those kinds of things, but you don't really need to understand it to analyze your text data. And so for today's presentation, we'll actually be using the software. Most of the presentation will actually be a demo, and hopefully you'll be able to follow that demo. And really the only thing you have to do if you do have text data that you would like to analyze is get that text data into a CSV file or something that SAS can consume. And I'll show you a little bit. It's not hard to go out and find a YouTube video to take your Word documents or your text documents and get them into a file that you can then import into SAS and start your text analytics project. So with that, let me just share my screen here. Any questions before we start? So where do you get the resources? So I point everybody to the SAS Educator Portal. It's a great resource. I think we mentioned it in past presentations, but you guys have access to this. Lori will put the link in the chat window. But once you get access to the SAS Educator Portal, you have access to all the SAS classes that we teach. You have access to the software, free software platforms that we use. So I'm just going to click access for educators. Now I'm already signed in. You do have to register for this with your edu email address. But once you have your SAS profile, you can just go to this site. And the first thing that I'll show you is we have this section. So this is the home page. We have this section called Browse Instructional Resources. And you can just, it comes up to view teaching kits. We do have classroom activities like case studies and that sort of thing that you can look through also. But if you scroll down to the very bottom, we have a couple of classes on text analytics. And so the one I'm going to be using the case study from is called SAS Visual Text Analytics. So once you click on this and enroll in the, I think there's an enrollment button, but you can get all the course notes for this class. It'll talk about, it's a very detailed class. I think we usually teach it in about 3 days. So there's a lot of information in there. And it includes, like I said, some of the math that goes on behind the scenes. So you'll learn about the tools, the tool in SAS Viya, to use, but you'll also, if you want to teach your students about singular value decomposition or how the topics are in a text collection are actually determined using the software, you have all of that background there. The other thing, I'll go back to the home page here, and somewhere on here is access to the software. Let's see if it's. I'm not seeing it here. Oh, get software. So if I click on this, we have two software platforms that are free for academics, this both students and faculty. So again, we've talked about these before, but just in case this is your first seminar, we have a traditional SAS platform. We call it our 9.4 platform. Visual Text Analytics is going to be on our newest platform, which is called VIA. And you can get access to something called VIA for Learners. It's a fully implemented version of the SAS VIA platform. SAS VIA is a parallel processing platform. Actually, each instance of SAS VIA is connected to 36 servers. So it's built for processing big data, but you can request access. You'll get an account set up, again, using your EDU profile. And once you have that account set up for you or your students, you get about 5 gigabytes of space to upload your own document collection. So you couldn't really grab Twitter comments from the last year, because that would be a huge file, but you can process, survey results and things like that you may be using for your class or for your research. Again, you just have to get them into a file that SAS can consume. And, I just went out there and searched, how do I get individual CSV files or text files into one file that I can use? And this video popped up, and it's very easy. So you can just go out there and search, but basically you hit the data and you say, I want to import data from a folder. So if you have all your text documents in a folder, it'll create a CSV for you with all your text documents included in one file. So that's about it. I'll go to my slide. So we call this sentiment analysis, but really we're going to be part of sentiment analysis is included in our visual text analytics product. So we'll kind of walk through that. So again, get access to the educator portal. From there, you can download the course notes for that visual text analytics class. You'll go to browse instructor resources, and then again, look for this class here. So what can you do with visual text analytics? You can extract information from unstructured data. And somebody had a pie graph or something. I looked at it recently, and they said that the growth in data is mostly coming from unstructured data. And when I say unstructured data, it could be pictures, comments from social media sites, that sort of thing. As far as the volume of data, how much data is being stored out there, unstructured data represents about, at least according to this report that I was reading, about 75% of the data that's being stored now. So unstructured data, we'll think of it as text data, image data, that sort of thing, is taking up about 75% of the storage that's being stored in the cloud or on-prem. We can use visual text analytics to to categorize our documents, to come up with terms, terms and topics from our documents. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And we can get the sentiment from those documents. So in SAS, we have a tool that'll read through information and it comes up with a sentiment score. Is this a positive document? Is it a neutral document, or is it a negative document? And so as we go through our example today, we'll talk about how sentiment analysis fits in with our project. But you have to do a lot of work before you can get to the sentiment analysis. So we'll talk about text parsing, how we can get our business information into the text document. For example, you may have text documents about a very specific part of your university or something like that, and you want to say, well, I want to look for these specific terms. So we'll learn how we can input our own business knowledge into the text analytics project. Text analytics is available in currently 33 languages, maybe more now. So if you have documents from other countries, you can choose that language and process the documents there. And we can also use text analytics to generate scores that we can then attach to other data and use in predictive modeling. So say one of the examples we have are comments from a call center from a telco company, so a mobile phone company. And so they get people calling up to their tech support and their helpline, and they record those and then translate those into text. And you can use that information. We can come up with scores for those documents to say, you know, maybe the sentiment score. And we can use that sentiment score to say, hey, can we predict whether this customer is going to leave our company, is going to go to some other mobile company? So there's some tools built into our visual text analytics, and one of those is called natural language processing. So this does the heavy lifting on determining, you know, what is a noun, what is a verb, what are compound phrases that represent a single concept in a document. So this is all built in. So you pick your language, it'll go through, identify parts of speech. It'll identify things like adjectives that represent, you know, the big long train will come out as one entity instead of three different terms in the document. We use a little bit of machine learning. We'll talk about very little about that, but there's some mathematics that go behind. Once we have parsed the document, we use some algorithms to come up with, hey, what terms do we keep from these documents? What terms are unimportant so we can get rid of? And then we'll use the Liddy language to interpret, for example, you know, whether the document contains a proper noun, for example, or it is linking two parts of a sentence, for example. So we'll use the Liddy language. But from that, we can extract terms and user-built concepts. We'll actually do this in our example. We get the sentiment analysis. We kind of get that for free. We don't have to do anything about it. SAS will go through, once it's parsed the document, it has rules built into whether this is a positive, neutral, or negative comment. And then we'll take those terms and concepts that we learn from parsing and actually generate topics. And you have a lot of control over topics, so you can determine how many topics you want to glean from your document collection. You can, if you allow SAS to go through and generate the topics, you may find that you want to split a topic that SAS identified, or you may want to combine two topics that SAS identified because they're very similar. And then if you have categories in your document, so we'll talk more about this, but let's say somebody has gone through some of the documents and they said, oh, this document is about our product quality. And they've kind of come up with a category for the document. A human has gone through. You can see how well the software can be used to predict those categories. So when you get a bunch of new comments, let's say about your product, you can use those Boolean rules that SAS will come up with to identify like product related issues, service related issues, that sort of thing. So if you've got some information in your document collection, you may link these back to maybe in your survey, there's a question on, what did you have a problem with? The service or user instructions or something like that. And so you may use that column in your survey as a category. And then you can, by reading the comments in the document collection, you can see how well you can predict whether it's a service related issue or product related or instructional or so forth. So sentiment analysis is one part of the software, and we'll use this. And basically it just goes through using that Liddy language and assigns a positive, neutral, or negative score to each document in your document collection. And you can pass that sentiment score to later nodes in your visual analytics, or use that sentiment score for more predictive modeling down the road. So the case study that we're going to be doing today is about comments on drugs that are used for depression. So we actually downloaded this from the site. Now somebody went through and actually changed the names of the drugs. But we downloaded these from an online forum. These are comments about from people who used a drug to combat depression, treatment for depression. So the names of the medications have been changed, but if you were really interested, you could probably decipher the changes and figure out which drug they were talking about. And these problems, these text documents or comments discuss problems with the drug, so side effects, that sort of thing. Maybe they were very happy with the drug and there's no side effects, but the goal of the text mining exercise is really to find out, are there any side effects that we can glean from certain drugs? So we can use our own information. So we know the drug's names, so we can put that in. The main treat or condition we're trying to combat with these drugs are depression and anxiety. We're really interested in the side effects like weight gain, sleep issues, something if they cause the depression to get worse. So we want to know that. So we can take those and we can actually input like known side effects that we're interested in. We can input that into the text analysis. So we'll develop what are called concepts that then the text analytics software will look for. So things we might want to generate our own custom concepts are, well, we know the names of the drugs. So SAS will go through, if we didn't input any knowledge, it will go through and identify these drugs probably as nouns, but we can go beyond that and say, hey, when you see a drug name like Abidol or something like that, flag that as a medication. And we can also look for, SAS will automatically find measurements, but we can look for certain terms we can give SAS some information to say, hey, when you see things like numbers before the initials mg or milligrams, that's actually a dosage level. And then we can go through and give SAS a list of side effects that we want to look for. So we'll generate those. So here are some examples. We can input a concept called medication, and we can list all the drugs that we want to look for. We can look for dosages like 20 milligrams, 60 milligrams. So we can tell SAS to look for this string pattern in our documents. And then we can combine previously defined concepts into another concept. So we might look for the drug concept and the dosage to get the prescription. And then we could give it a list of side effects that we want to look for. Any questions before we actually jump into the demo? All right, silence is golden. So that's the end of my slides. So let's go out to the software. So again, once you get your account on SAS Viya for Learners, you'll get an email saying, hey, we've set up your account, your 5 gigabytes of storage. There is a little document here, and it will direct you to this page. And I go ahead and bookmark this page because this is where I go to launch the software. If I ever need a refresher course on how to upload data into my environment, there's a document here. It's really easy. I mean, basically you have to store your document collection in one file somewhere on your computer. And then you can upload it into SAS with a couple of clicks. But I'll go ahead and launch the software. And so I have these drug comments stored in a file called drug reports, and it's already been uploaded. It's available to me. I'll be taking the SAS drive, but the tool that I want to use is actually, this is the main driver or kind of your main icon in SAS Viya to get to any of the tools. And Visual Text Analytics is part of our Build Models project. This is Model Studio. If you previously ordered software from SAS, you would order Model Studio. It's included with SAS Viya. So we've got a lot of different tools in SAS Viya. By the way, if you want to, when you want to upload your own data, you actually go to develop SAS code. It'll take you to an interface where there's an upload button. And as long as you have your folder, it's called your CAS user folder highlighted, that's where you have 5 gigabytes of space to store your own data. But I'm going to jump to build models since my data is already uploaded. So this is going to open Model Studio. And from here, I'll get a list of all my projects. I probably should clean this up a little bit because I've got a lot of projects, so it takes a while to load. But we can also start a new project. So that's what we'll do when it finishes loading my projects. So I've got a lot of projects, but I'm gonna just start from a new project. Now from here, we could give our project a name. So I'll just give it a name. This is a shared environment. So there's other people. I think we have about 70,000 people using this environment. So I wouldn't do this normally, but I usually would put my initials in front and then put a date on the end of this, just so it's easy for me to identify my reports from any of the tools that I'm in. But for here, I'll just do that. Now we have 3 different types of projects that we can start. The default one is data mining and machine learning. So this would be predictive modeling or cluster analysis, that sort of thing, where you're trying to, you've got a group of customers or entities that you want to do some data mining on. The other types of projects we can create are forecasting. So if you have timestamp data, you could choose a forecasting project, and the other one is text analytics. So I'm going to choose text analytics. What this does by choosing the type of project, it'll make tools available to us. So if I choose text analytics, I'm not going to get machine learning models, right? I'm not going to get gradient boosting models, but I will get tools that will allow me to analyze text data. And we have a default template here. You could start from scratch, but this template contains all the tools that I could use in text analytics. So I'll just leave that as it is. And now I have to choose my language. I'm gonna stick with English, and I have to browse to find where is my document collection stored. So I'm gonna click browse. And so all the tables that SAS has available are in this available tab. If you upload your own data, you'll have to go to data sources, expand, and you'll have to find your CAS user, because that's where you have that 5 gigabytes of space. And that's where in the upload document, that's where it tells you to upload. But I'll go back to available. I know my data is up here. It's been loaded. So I'll just type in drug, and there's my data, drug reports. So it's a pretty simple data set. It just contains those drug comments in a field called drug reports. It does have the name of the file and what extension it was. Was it a text file? You know, I think most of mine were text files. And then some kind of ID. If you don't have this, if you don't have actually an individual ID for each of your comments, don't worry about it. SAS will create one for you when it imports the data. But this is the data I want to work with. It has approximately 1,400 documents and 4 columns. And that's all I need to do to set up my project. I'll click save. And you'll get this little message. You must assign a text variable in order to run the pipeline. So you can only have one text variable. And in my case, my comments are stored in the variable called drug report. So I just need to change the role of that variable to text, and then SAS is ready to go. Now, if you did have some other survey questions that you wanted to use as category, I don't have any in here, but if, let's say somebody, like in our example, somebody has said, this comment, you have a column that says, what are you having a problem with? Is it the product, the service, or the instructions? You know, and you have that variable stored, you could use that as a category. So if you have another variable, or maybe maybe you have some identifying information about the person who made the comment and you want to use that as a category, you can use other variables as categories, but you can only have one text variable. All right. Once I've done that, I'm ready to run my product. I make sure I unselect. Once I've made changes to the variable, I'll unselect. It really doesn't matter, but just so I don't. Not sure what that. So this is the default pipeline for doing text analytics. I'll show you the tools that you have. So under natural language processing, we can do We can create concepts or do text parsing. Feature extraction. This will take the terms that are identified in text parsing and actually create topics. And then we can either generate categories from the topics, so we can promote a topic to a category, or we can, like I said, you could have variables already in your data that are defined as categories. Then under miscellaneous, we have sentiment analysis. So the sentiment analysis node, actually, you could put anywhere in your pipeline. It just has to go after the text parsing. That's the main workhorse of the text analytics process. So I've got my data collection. I've defined my text variables. Now I want to input some of my own business knowledge about these drugs and side effects and so forth. So I'm going to click on the concepts node. SAS includes, I think there's 7 predefined concepts. These are things like proper nouns, names, people and places, measurements. Let's see what some of the other ones are. Measurements. Well, we'll see them. We'll go ahead and include those. So these are predefined in SAS. So there's rules for identifying measurements and amounts and that sort of thing. And you really can't see the logic there. You can just include them or not include them if you don't want to include them. So I'm going to go ahead and check those. But I'm going to go ahead and open up the concepts node because I want to put my own business knowledge into this problem. So let's go ahead and first we'll take a look at the predefined concepts. So we'll go ahead and just, I right clicked on the concept node and run it and ran it. I don't want to run the entire pipeline yet. I just want to run that concepts node. So going back to the data, my comments, the only thing I've defined here is the text variable. All right, it looks like that has run. So let's open that up. And we'll take a look at the predefined comment. So it identifies dates, measures, money, noun groups, organizations, percentages, people or persons, places, and time. So we get these free. And again, you can't really see the logic behind these. These are kind of SAS proprietary, but you can turn them on or turn them off. But I want to enter some of my own business knowledge. By the way, if you wanted to look at what was identified in your document, let's pick the measurement one. We'll click on that one, and you can see I have 1,414 documents. And if I click on the measure, I can look at which ones matched on a measurement. So you can see 40 pounds, 2 years. These are all identified as measurements because I turned these on. Now I don't have any custom concepts, but I want to generate one. And the first one that I'll generate, and I have this in a Word document, so you don't have to watch me type these. And some of these are pretty long. So the first one I have is called medication. So I'm going to enter a name. And hopefully I can get through this fast. It's recommended that if you generate a custom concept, you use all capitals and put an underscore first, just so you'll be able to see it easier later. So I'm gonna click OK. And now I have to give some way for SAS to identify. The easiest way to identify is what's called with a classifier concept. So I've got a list over here, and you can't see me, but I'm cutting and pasting. So these are all the drugs that I know about that are used to treat depression. So I'm just going to paste those in, and you'll see it's just, again, the simplest thing is just look for the word Avadel. That's what a classifier means. So these are really easy to put in. You just put the keyword classifier in all caps, colon, and then the term you want to look for, right? Once I've got my rule in, again, scrolling down here, there's a lot of drugs that are used to treat depression. I'll go ahead and just verify that my code is correct. I haven't left out a colon or something. So I'll click the little check mark here. It'll go through and identify my code. And then before I turn it loose on all the documents, I mean, I could have 1 million documents in my document collection, or 1 million comments in my document collection. What I can do is I can test some sample code. So I have some sample code here. I'll paste that in. So I just put one comment. He obtained tinactitol from 10 milligrams and Revinor 25 milligrams. So I'll see how well my rule is doing before I turn it loose on the entire document collection. So I can check my sample code. And what will happen is SAS will look at this rule, compile this rule, put it into the Lidi language, and then it'll highlight anytime that rule was triggered. So again, these 2 drugs are in my classifier somewhere down here. And so it was able to identify them. So it looks like my rule is working pretty good. I'll add another new concept. This concept is going to be called dosage. And this one is a little bit more complicated. So if you know regular expressions, you can use regular expressions to identify. So you may have very, very complicated, look for the word drug and then go back 3 spaces or 3 words and look for something else. So with regular expressions, you can do a lot of things. I've just got a simple regular expression here to look for the dosage. And there's a good 500-page book that you can get on regular expressions if you're interested in it. But it's just basically looking for the either upper or lowercase milligrams, and then it's going back a number of spaces to find out what the numbers are, right? So I'll again verify my code is correct. And it gives me code is valid. I'll go ahead and test this on, because I can use this same sample text to see if this code works. And it identified 10 milligrams and 25 milligrams. So it looks like my code's working correctly, at least with this sample text. Go back to custom concepts. And now I'm going to use these 2 custom concepts to generate another custom concept. So new concept. This one's going to be called prescription. And for the prescription, it's really simple. I'm going to just say, if you see the concepts, medication and dosage together, that means we've got a prescription. So it's going to look for the concept previously defined as medication, and then the dosage, which was previously defined. Again, check my code is valid. And these are kind of the simplest concepts, but you can generate very complicated concepts. And in the course notes, there's a whole chapter on generating these. So if you want to look for very specific things in your document, and it's kind of complicated on how to identify those, we've got these other types of concepts that you can generate. So let's go ahead and test that on the sample text. and it identifies Tinactol 10 milligrams and Resonor 25 milligrams. So that's what I wanted it to do. And then the big one we want to look for is side effects. So we have some known side effects from these drugs. I'll just generate a new concept called side effects. I'll call it that. And this one's pretty long. So I'm going to cut and paste from my document. Somebody has told me these are all the possible side effects that we've seen from these drugs. And again, I'll use the simplest. I'll just look for these words with the classifier keyword. So if I see in the documents abdominal pain or aggression, I'll just flag those as side effects, right? And let me get another. I'll get some more sample text to test this against. So let's go through and check this and see if it identifies the side effects. All right, so it identified tired, weakness, weight gain. It didn't identify inappropriate giggling. So if I wanted to add that as a side effect, I would just put in another classifier line there. But I think we're ready to go. That's it. So we can go ahead and run this node. And we could take a look, once this is done running, we could take a look at how many documents did we identify that had a dosage? How many had a medication? How many had a prescription or side effects? Not sure why it's running so slow. Let me go ahead and close out of here. It looks like it's finished, but for some reason my the other way you can exit once you've got your concepts defined, you can exit out, come here and open. And then I can highlight one of my custom concepts. Let's do side effects. And then go to the match document. So again, all the documents, there's 1,414. I can see how many documents matched a side effect. So 406 of the 1,414 documents had one of these side effects listed in the documents. Let's go ahead and run the text parsing. So now we've entered our custom information into the document collection or told SAS what specific things to look for. We can go ahead and run. the text parsing node. And this is where the bulk of the work is, right? So we've given SAS some new things to look for, but SAS is going to go through and actually it does that singular value decomposition. It goes through, parses out it comes up with the big matrix, like for each document will be a row, right? And then it'll parse out the terms. And then from that, which would be a very sparse matrix, right? If you think about it, not everybody used the drug Abidol. So Abidol is going to be a term, a column in that matrix, but probably there's only 15 documents that contain the word Abidol. And then all the side effects that we identified, probably very few have abdominal pain, right? So that's going to be a very sparse matrix. Each document will be a row. Each possible term that SAS keeps will be a column. So it's mostly zeros and ones. Maybe some documents mention the same term twice. But from that document, we use singular value decomposition to take that very sparse wide matrix, long and wide matrix, and transform that using some calculus, right? And then it comes down to the terms matrix, and these are the terms that we decide to keep, and gives the terms a score for each document. So let's go ahead and open the text parsing now. Well, before I do that, there are some results we can view from the concepts. So if we right click on the concepts and view results, we'll get a nice bar chart with how many noun group concepts were identified, how many medications concept, how many dosage. So we can see the matches per concept, we can see the number of documents per concept, that sort of thing. Text parsing is where most of the work is. Let's go ahead and open that up. We'll get a list of the kept terms and then the drop terms. So how do these drop terms work? So SAS has a stop list. So words like a, the, that sort of thing, SAS will automatically drop those. Those are not important. We'll see in the other thing, we can set term minimum frequencies or document minimum frequencies, meaning the term has to appear this many times, or the term has to be in at least 3 documents for me to keep, but you can adjust those. So here are all the drop terms. You can also, if you scroll through these and said, boy, it dropped for some reason, I want to keep that. That's important to my document collection. You can actually select a term and move it over to the kept terms, and vice versa. If in the kept terms you see a term that you don't want to keep, you can select it and move it to the drop terms. But this is just working with SAS's default list and those couple of settings on the minimums for term density and document density. So I see depression here. I'm going to select that, and we could get a bunch of information about depression. So there's this term map. We can take a look at that, and we can see what are all the other terms associated with depression. So the lines represent information gain. So if you have the word depression, we see it's in 492 documents, then Abidol is mentioned 142 times in the same document. And by knowing Abidol, you can get some information about depression. It gives a report. The thickness of the line represents the information gain. All right, so you can get some information about that. You can also get similarity scores with depression. So what terms are associated with depression? So I click the similarity to scores. Of course, depression is 100% similar to depression, but we see major is associated with depression. It looks like about 70% of the time. It's identified in 64 documents with depression, and 64 out of the I guess one document mentions depression and has major in it twice. So we can get an idea of how this works. If I scroll down here, actually I'll sort. So I've got depression selected. Click on the similarity column to sort in descending order. We can see the terms that are associated with depression, but they're somehow negated. So for depression, there must be some documents that have the word trouble, but because the similarity score is negative, it might mean something like the document was, I was depressed and I took this drug and I didn't have any trouble sleeping, or it did not cause me to lose sleep, or I had no trouble sleeping, or something like that. So that's how you work with the similarity scores. Let me go back up. And so these are all related or relationships with the term depression. Now, if I wanted to scroll down and sort by role, I could see which medications have the highest similarity with the term depression. So it looks like however you say, this drug has the highest similarity, meaning it's most often used with the term depression. So there's a lot of information you can get about the terms. We'll go ahead and close this for now because looks like I'm running close to time. So that's the heavy lifting text part. Now, to run sentiment analysis, we don't have to do anything. I still have the text parsing on. So you may have your own list of terms you want to keep, or list of terms that you want to not keep. So we call these start list and stop list. If you do have those custom lists, you can enter that as a separate data set and then point to that. Also, if you have a synonym list, so SAS has its own synonym list, you can do that, input your own if you have that in a file. You can enable misspellings. So this is probably a good idea. I'm not going to do it, but a lot of times, especially online, people misspell things. If you enable this, it takes a little bit longer for the text mining, but you can enable misspelling detection. So if somebody misspells a drug, maybe you'll pick it up. And here's where we can say only keep terms that are in at least 4 documents, but we can slide this up or down if we reduce the number of documents required, it'll find more terms. If we increase it, it'll move more terms to the drop list. In sentiment analysis, there's really only one option. If you have your own sentiment model, you can specify that. So if you've got maybe a list of terms, and whether it's positive or negative, you can include that in the software, but otherwise you're going to get this for free. So I'll just go ahead and run this. Well, before we do that, let's take a look at the results from text parsing. So again, you'll get a nice histogram of, how many of each of your custom concepts were kept, and then also those already defined concepts, as well as how many nouns you have, adjectives, all of that stuff. All right, let's go ahead and run the sentiment analysis. And again, this is proprietary logic that SAS is going to run. We can't change this unless we specify our own sentiment model. And there's not much to look at with the results from sentiment analysis. Basically, you'll get some code that you could change. So if you wanted to score some new documents, you could actually copy this code and run it against your new document collection. And then the next node, we could generate topics. So we can automatically generate topics. And again, we have some density parameters that we could specify. So term density and document density. Of course, increasing this will find. So these are saying that the term has to be appear at least once. So the term from text parsing has to appear at least once in the topic to be categorized in this topic. And it has to be, you can specify the document density also. So increasing these will reduce the number of topics that you can find. And this checkbox will say, well, let SAS determine how many topics are in my data. You can unselect this and you can say, I want to identify, I don't know, 20 topics or something like that. So let's go ahead and run this. And this is where a lot of your work will do. So here's the heavy lifting. You get the sentiment analysis for free. This is where you can work a lot with the software. Once the topics are generated, you can combine topics. You can promote topics to categories, and we'll take a look at that once this is done. So I think by default, if you left this checked, SAS would actually generate 10 topics from this data. So let's go ahead. We asked it to find 20. Let's go ahead and open this after it runs. And we'll see here we actually got 20 topics. SAS will list the top 5 terms that identify this topic. So we can see side effect, side effect, no, and make are the top 5 terms in this topic. They're not the only terms that are if we wanted to see all the terms, let's see if we can find one that deals with depression. There's one, depression and anxiety. So if we wanted to see all the terms that are associated, we select the topic and we'll see all the terms that are associated with this topic. You can also see the match documents that are identified as this topic. if you click the matched. Let's see if there's another topic that's kind of related to depression. Well, here's one that mentions depressed. So if I select two topics, I can actually merge those two topics and create my own user topic. So now you'll see if I scroll down, we have taken the terms from those two topics and combined them. So now I have this new user generated topic. And if I rerun the node, I can see how many documents are contained in that. System seems to be running a little slow today for some reason. All right, so there's my user topic. It identified 225 documents. If I selected that, I could see the match documents and they're there. So it gives me the main thing, the terms that identify this topic. You'll see I also get the sentiment score over here. I could also generate if I go over here to terms, let's see. I could generate my own topic. Let's see if I want to. Let's say I want it to generate an anxiety topic. So I could select those. Let's see, I must have something selected. Let me just try that again. Hmm. Yeah, for some reason this, but I must have done something wrong here, but you should be able to select terms. If you want to create your own topic, you can select the terms that you want to create your topic. Now, let's say we want to take this depression and actually promote it to a category. So my new user topic, gosh, something's not working right. So I should be able to promote this to a category. Huh. Let me just try rerunning the topic node. Sorry about that. I think my internet is slow, is messing up the software here because my diagram's not updating correctly. There we go. So let's say I'm happy with this depression node, or I created a new topic from a list of terms and I want to promote it to a category. I can just click on this. And now what will happen is when I run the categories node, instead of looking for all the terms that are defined in this category, SAS will try to come up with some Boolean rule that it can use to identify this. So we've got 225 documents that are identified using all of these terms in the depression category. SAS is going to try to come up with a Boolean rule to identify this depression category for us so that we can score new documents. So let's go ahead and run the categories node. And by the way, if you define variables in your data as categories, SAS will do the same thing for those. So it'll use the topics that are generated, the terms associated, and try to come up with Boolean rules to identify those categories. So right now, because I don't have any predefined categories, I just have the one, and I might want to rename this category so it's easier. I'll just call it depression category. And you'll see it comes up with a very simple rule that we could then employ to read in more documents. If I look at the depression category, remember there were 225 documents, and just using this very simple rule, well, so I guess it thought I changed something in the rule. Go ahead and run it again. So it found 317. So it actually found more documents than are actually there. So I might want to augment this rule a little bit, but this is SAS's best guess at identifying documents that meet that depression category criteria. And again, sentiment analysis is along there. Go to close and open the results. You can see the distribution of the positives. So these are actually the false positives. So using that rule, it identified 153 documents that weren't actually identified with that category, that promoted category. But I got 164 true positives and 61 false negatives. So you can see how well your rule performs. We could look at the output data from the entire text document. So we'll get to see the text that was actually there, the category name, the keywords, and I believe we can get the score here. Where's the score? It gives you a score for each of how well it fits the category. You can also look at the data from the topics generation. We look at the output data there. So to give you those scores you can use for maybe modeling, building a predictive model using the customer comments. Let's see if there's anything else. So all of this case study, I kind of skipped around for the sake of time, but you can go through this complete case study. It's included in the notes from that class. There's also another case study on airline infractions that's there. And I think if you go out to the from the educator portal, there may be another case study out there related to text analytics. But if my internet was a little bit better, this would have gone a little bit smoother, but that concludes my my talk today. Let's see if I had any more slides. I think that's it. So any questions about text analytics? It's really fairly easy to, you don't have to know much. You just have to get your data into a file that SAS can consume. Start out with the defaults in SAS, but you can always, there are a few parameters that you can change. And of course, through the custom concepts, you can insert your own business knowledge into your document collection. So I think I'll stop the share. If there's any questions about the software, the educator portal, or the class, or anything that text analytics does, I'll try to answer those questions. So I see Lily volunteered to help people with regular expressions. So I had a friend, so I used to read weblog data way back 20 some years ago. And if you've ever looked at a weblog, it's a lot of gobbledygook. luckily I had a friend, Don Cook, who's no longer at SAS, but I would say, Don, I need a regular expression to find out the IP address, and then I want to go back and find what the referrer was to that IP. And this was back all before, Google Analytics had software that could read weblogs. So actually got a patent out of it. So it's no longer any use to anyone, but yeah, it was exciting times trying to read that web data when the .com explosion happened. Any questions? All right, I'll turn it back over to Lily and Lori. Talk about maybe a little bit about the next presentation, I think next week.
Yeah, Lori, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just bring up the abstract really quick. I just sent it. So for those of you who were with us a couple of weeks ago, Nancy Rush gave a lovely presentation about data cleaning. So she'll be returning next week on the 20th, same time, to talk about effective survey design. So in the seminar, you'll learn how to design effective web-based surveys and work with online respondents. The surveys can have many benefits, but they also come with their own set of challenges. And the seminar will provide participants with practical and easy to use strategies for navigating the issues. At the end of the seminar, we hope that you'll have the skills to maximize response rates to your surveys, write effective survey questions, determine optimal survey length, correct for non-probability sampling, reduce respondent fatigue, apply methods to reduce bias in surveys, and create effective visual layout. So I hope everybody is able to join us next week. And if you aren't, of course, the recording and slides will be available thanks to Lily after the seminar, as these will, Tom's slides and video will be available at the end of the seminar as well.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Tom. We are learning a lot from you guys. So thank you so much for giving WKU this opportunity.
Thanks for having us.
Have a wonderful day.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.